Entertain a motion that we begin.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. We'll start with a moment of silence. Please join us in that. After that, Councilmember Smythe will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Moment of silence, please. Thank you.
We stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, it's time for public comment. Invite anybody to come and address the mayor and council. Are we online? Those online, I'll give you till 6:14 to make any public comments if you're here in chambers. We have a public hearing later, so if it has to go with that, let's wait for the public hearing part of that. Two items on the consent agenda. One is the approval of the August 20th and September 3rd council minutes. The other is approval of a Class C beer license for Tapatio. Can someone help out the mayor? Tapatio, Mexican food located at 3798 Washington Boulevard. The original Maple Garden for the rest of us. Okay.
Good.
Any questions or comments on that? Okay. Then entertain a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Really?
You can
whoever
pick one.
wants to take it, I don't care.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Did everybody say all in favor? We passed the public comment section, but I'm assuming our visitors here are interested in public comment. It's my meeting. I'm going to go back. If you'd like to come address the council, we'll give you 3 minutes to tell us what's on your mind. Come on up, just give us your name and what you're thinking. If this has to do with water, though, could wait for the public hearing. Let's wait for the public hearing. I just thought of that. Okay, awesome. I don't have to go back. Perfect. Okay, item 5 is public hearing. Receive and consider comments on a proposed increase to the water rates. Entertain a motion that we open our public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we're now in a public hearing. Those are online, if you have comments about this, put public hearing, and then your thoughts as if you were here. Okay, now is the perfect time.
I mostly had just some questions. I don't know
Yeah.
if this is the appropriate, but my name is Braden Forsey. I own the laundromat over here just around the corner from you guys. So when I saw a water increase, I obviously had questions. My bill is in excess of up to $2,500 now a month, and it's increased steadily over the last couple of years with inflation and everything like that. So my question really was, I only get the notices, and I'm a very novice at this, so please forgive my ignorance on it. But we had a surplus from the utilities, and that usually goes into the general fund. I usually get a notice of something like that on my water bill every year. And so I'm just questioning why we're going to add to that if we already have a surplus. And again, I didn't see that this year, but I saw that was passed, that we moved funds into the general fund. And I noticed last year that was from utilities. I'm not sure about this year, what the numbers were with this year, but last year it was like 80,000 got moved into the general fund. I could be way off on that. But yeah, I just wanted to have some questions maybe answered about that. Being a laundromat, the only laundromat I think in South Ogden, I'm kind of a unique and special case, and so may not apply in this year. That's all.
Okay, thanks, Braden. We'll answer that in shortly, okay? Did you want to? Thank you.
I'm Jason Miles. I was just curious that my
Jason Miles, is that what you said, Jace?
BALLF.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, and I thought our rate already went up because my bill jumped $30 in 1 month, and I haven't done anything different in water, so that's like more than double the usage. So I was wondering if the rate hike went in already, or if that's a problem anyone else has had in the town, or how that would be, or if I got to look for a leak, or that's a big hike.
Yeah, that is. No, it has not gotten to effect. Could we get an address?
Yeah,
If you,
3731 Adams Avenue.
oh,
I mean, I got a newer house,
Huh. Okay. So look, it could. We'll talk about that tonight. Yeah, no, nothing's gone into effect. We haven't raised it for quite a while, so.
Can we transfer to that enterprise fund like every year? Why is?
Yeah, we'll address that. That's a great question.
All right, I guess I'll wait for that.
Yeah. Lisa, did you notice anything?
Yeah, that's a big difference, yeah.
Yeah. We have pretty good data. We can run your address, and it will show like when it spiked or when it started, and we'll turn that to our employees, yeah. So hopefully we get that sorted out, but that's not the increase yet.
Where it's leaking either then, huh? You can leak underground and not know it?
You haven't been using your house water to water with, like you haven't hooked up to the, yeah, it could be like a toilet running. Do you have soft water? Just a drip somewhere.
I'm aware of all that kind of thing, there's nothing like that.
Okay.
That much water, would be able to notice it above, on top of the ground, you think? That much you think you notice some kind of difference.
Or is that much down the drain, so your sewer goes up as well?
Yeah, if it's your service line, usually it's sky high, not, I mean, a lot more than what that is, so.
No. We have your address, Jace, and so we will turn that over to our Public Works and Jeanette and have them look at that.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
They can come out, and
Yeah, Public Works can come out on that. Okay. Thank you for your comments. Is there any online, Danielle? Okay, thank you. For either one? Okay. All right. Seeing nobody else, I entertain a motion that we close our public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Next is our discussion action item, consideration of ordinance 24-11, approving amendments to the consolidated fee schedule for implementation of a water fee increase. Mr. Dixon and Mr. Angeward. Mr. Dixon, one of you speak first to the funds transfers.
Yeah, for sure. I'll let Peter correct me if anything I say is a little off, but I guess just to Mr. Ball's comment, like we can have our Public Works come out and they'll be there, make sure that they'll tell you, hey, there's nothing running in the house, and they'll watch the meter and be able to tell you, even if you think everything's off in the house, they'll say, the meter's still turning. At least help try to diagnose that a little better. So I don't know that we have your phone number, but that might be something that we could get from you that then our guys could call you. So please leave us your phone numbers. And then Braden, to your comments. So there's typically two transfers types of, one is called charges for services, and that's because these enterprises operate as independent businesses, like our water fund, sewer fund, right, which is different than our general fund. But we have a lot of supportive services that help to run the enterprises. So legal, right, the administrative costs of billing. So that's all through a calculation and a formula in charging back to the enterprises the services the general fund is providing from staff and other things.
And that happens annually, correct? We do that
That's an
every year.
annual transfer, and that's called charges for services that are charged back. There's also, and what you may be referring to is the utility franchise fees. The city charges other private and public utility companies, like our gas and our cable, and they get to put their pipes, their fiber within the city's owned right-of-way. So a franchise fee is typically 6%, most of them, that we charge those companies essentially to rent the public right-of-way. The city years ago implemented the same franchise fee for city-owned utilities because the general fund, it owns the right-of-way, the roads and the curb and gutter, and so because our water fund has infrastructure in the general fund's right-of-way, there's a similar franchise fee charge to that group. Those revenues that are collected within our enterprise funds, the franchise fee, that 6%, then at the end, they're transferred to the general fund, and it comes into the general fund as a revenue. So,
And some
it's-
years we've earmarked those for roads and for parks and a
Yes,
certain
by
percentage.
policy, the council in years past has said, hey, we want to use those franchise fees for roads and for parks. So it is not necessarily that the utility funds are so wealthy that we're just transferring money. Matter of fact, the state law prohibits us from doing that for those very reasons. And so, Peter, if you want to correct anything or add anything, please do.
I think that was well said, Matt, and we really keep those thresholds, those percentages kind of in line with the government industry standards. So there's definitely auditability of those percentages and whatnot, and it's fairly standard process within different municipalities, and we can't just kind of go off the rails and use different percentages that are wholly different than the rest of everyone else is using.
Can I just comment, Brandon? I appreciate you coming and telling us what your bill is. We often just know that certain users at so many gallons pay this much, and I think in our minds, we often think that it's our biggest box stores, our biggest businesses, and we don't always think of it as a small private business owner. So I appreciate you putting a face to that and giving us an idea of what you pay. So I do appreciate that. Thank you, Peter.
So what we'd like to do is walk you through a few scenarios, kind of a similar exercise to what we've been through as a council in our discussions leading up to this point. And Lisa's going to share this information with our online folks, but I just want to, I don't know, I'm not making any assumptions here. I just like to have a paper copy in front of me, so I will hand this out to each council member here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
Peter, do you have copies for the people in the?
I do,
dinner?
actually, sure. And with a little bit more feedback from our city manager, we added one scenario to these. Basically, what we've handed you is a projected bill and how it would change with the proposed increases. So just to give a little bit more background for members of the public, certainly we look at all of the services provided on your utility bill when we're having these discussions, and especially at this juncture, water has the most critical expenses and capital projects that are slated for maintenance and upgrade in the near future. So that's the biggest reason why we're looking at the water bill first, because certainly the fee increases should reflect the projects that need to be undertaken by the city and the public utilities group. So we evaluate this infrastructure through our sustainability model, and really the public utilities group bids these different projects a lot of times, and then we prioritize them according to need. So many of the areas in the city are more than 50 years old, pipes that are more than 50 years old, and And we know that maintaining those and continuing to upgrade those and replace them is the best practice with regard to, doing it before we wait for an actual leak or a break that just ends up costing more. And usually one, as our utilities director likes to remind us, usually one break leads to many breaks in the same area in a short amount of time, and it just is a matter of time. So that's why we have to prioritize these projects for water line replacement. And a lot of times we do those in conjunction with street projects as well, just because if you're digging up the street, the lines are right there. Let's use our heads and make logical decisions about when to replace those lines and prioritize them accordingly. So if you look at these scenarios, what we've tried to do is try to hit the main tiers of different residents with their current water bill. And if you look at this first scenario for a 1,500 gallon user, our proposed base fee in all of these scenarios would go from $14.33 to $16.02. So that would affect every single individual bill at that level. So a user that uses only 1,500 gallons, that is the only increase that they would really see. So as you see and highlighted in yellow, if this person had a bill of $66.05, their new bill would be $67.74 for a 2.5% increase of their monthly overall utility bill. The second scenario is the one that we added in. You could argue we could have put one between these two, but it was somewhat negligible, to tell you the truth, so we didn't include it. It was a 6,000 gallon user, but this 8,500 gallon user, really just want to make it transparent that what residents want to know is, what is my new bill going to be under this scenario? So with the tiered ladder, the increase in the tiered ladder, the first tier will remain untouched. We don't want to really cause undue hardship to the real low user group that may be on a fixed income, and we want to limit their impact to the increase in the base fee. So we're not going to increase that tier one usage ladder at all under this scenario. But the tier two ladder would go from $14 to $15.68, and the tier three ladder would go from $4 would go from, I have a typo here, don't I? Sorry about that. $14.14 to $14.64. And so the whole point of this is this user only has a 3.5% increase, and then we look at the third user, 12,000 gallons, and their increase their monthly bill would increase by $4.59 a month. And I was really, as to your point, Mr. Mayor, I was wondering who these highest users were, and I am. This next scenario is a 16,000 gallon user that would experience an increase of 4.4% to their bill monthly, and this last user, to our laundromat individual, this actually would apply to him. This user would use 146,000 gallons of water, and ultimately their bill would increase by about 5% or $87 monthly. He mentioned usage slightly higher than that, but I feel comfortable saying that it would still stay between the 5 and 6% increase amount. So the overall impact of this increase equates to about $23,000 a month in additional revenue that would be earmarked for these capital projects that really, we're just trying to take a bite out of every year, reprioritize them every single year, and use the funds available to put towards them. We're not trying, we're trying to make sure that we aren't hitting up the residents all at once for everything that's slated in the next 5 years, but these incremental increases hopefully are manageable, but most importantly, can keep us from having to absorb excessive costs down the road. Okay. So I think a couple things here. We do want the council to think about this. This is really we've really thought about it. Hopefully, it's fairly straightforward at this point, but we do want the council to decide, if passed, when we would like these rates to go into effect. And I guess I might suggest January 1st, but we could do it as soon as November 1st if everyone is in agreement.
Questions, comments, thoughts?
January 1st of next year, or is that right, 2025?
That's
That they
right.
would go in there,
Yes.
or in November? Yeah.
I'd like to see it go to January because of Christmas for people.
And it's lower water usage that usually anyways.
Yeah.
Peter, can you answer a quick question for me?
Please.
Sorry, can you speak into your microphones? Make sure you're really close to them, so.
Thank you.
Peter, I have a question for you.
Fire away.
On the tiers, help me understand why, so there's a maximum usage, so the first tier is how many thousand gallons?
15.
0 to 3,999. 0 to 4,000.
$39.99,
You
okay.
got it.
Which is something like 60% of the city or something to that
And
effect.
tier 2 is 4,000 to,
To 8,000, yep.
okay. And tier 3 is 8,001 to,
To 11,000. And then 11,000 to 16,000.
Oh,
and
you saw where I was
16,000
going with this.
plus.
okay. Is there any, and I know we probably should have talked about this weeks ago, is there any benefit to adjusting the tiers? So in the scenario 1, right? This person is using less than 4,000 gallons, so they're paying a $1.43 per that one time, right? That first
Yes,
tier, correct?
yes.
And then in scenario 2, they're paying 3 times the 143. So they're using 3,000. No, that's still not right.
So
What's the 3 times the 143?
the 3 times 143 is actually the first tier that remains unchanged. So that's,
420,
so
429.
so the 143 is the first tier. And I will, this is the scenario we added here, and I can tell it's not quite right, guys, this second scenario.
So let's go to scenario 3 then.
Yes.
Well, scenario 3 has, oh, go ahead, Susan, you found it.
Scenario three's got an issue going with it. The numbers are not quite right. Sorry.
If you look at scenario 3 in the blue box for A, it says 4 times 350 is 7. That should be 14,
Yeah.
because the third one's lower than the second one.
It's great to print these things
For more
out in front of you,
So-
isn't it?
I mean, I think the idea is there, just know that scenario 3 is higher than that. It's approximately $7 more
It is.
on
Thank
each
you.
side.
Going back to these numbers, so the 1 times 143 in scenario 1, they're paying $1.43 for what once?
To 3,000, 3,500, wasn't it?
That would be, so they're actually above the first 1,000 gallons essentially. So if they were under 1,000 gallons, then theoretically they wouldn't cross that threshold. Does that make
So
sense?
is that $1.43 per 1,000 gallons?
Yes, it
Okay,
is.
that's what I
Sorry.
thought it was.
Okay.
And so they kind of, yeah, so in tier 2, we have 4,000 gallons to play with, right? So they get charged once for the first 1,000, $3.50. They get $3.50 for the second 1,000 gallons over the 4,000, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm following you with that. My question is, would it benefit us at all to change these intervals? To Councilmember Stewart's point a couple weeks ago about having some of the lower tiers not as impacted. We're not impacting that first tier, we understand that. But in scenario 2 and in scenario 3, they're paying they're getting into those third and fourth tiers, especially in scenario 3. So my question is, would it behoove us to adjust the tiers rather than adjust the pricing?
I think one of the things you need to think about with that, of course, is we talked about 86% of customers are in those first 2 tiers already, and I don't want to infer, what an adjustment might mean. Obviously, we could go different ways on that, and it would be interesting to model down the road, actually, to look at that, frankly, like, I don't know, what would
So could we adjust the first tier to say 0 to $49.99 instead of $39.99, and then take the second tier from 5,000 to 10,000 and have an even less impact on those first 2 tiers? But that would have to remodel the revenues from those, and I think we should increase water. I think doing it responsibly on a regular basis is better than going oops 10 years from now and having a 100% rate increase, right?
Definitely.
But I also think that we can fudge those tiers or remodel them to have less impact on those lower income families that use less
Very
water.
little.
One of the reasons we tiered more tiers, though, was to try to encourage conservation, that you could stay in a lower tier. So if you go 5 to 10,000, once you're over 5, you might as well just let it flow, kind of thing.
Right.
And so the more tiers we had, the more you'd save if you conserved and stayed in your lower.
And I'd be fine with that too. I think that's
That's one of the reasons we did.
maybe even to your point, doing like maybe one additional tier and having less impact on those under 8K kind of users. I don't know. I go back to thinking about the little old ladies, that are only using 1,000 gallons.
So would you think, you're talking about maybe doing something like a 1 to 3,000 and then a 3 to 7,000 and then a 8 to 11,000 or something?
a 1 to 2,500 and a 25 to 6 and a 6 to 85 or something like that.
So Peter, you could have lots of fun with numbers.
Yes.
He likes Excel spreadsheets, I can tell. But I don't know. I'm fine with what's put before us,
Okay.
and I think a rate increase needs to happen.
And I'm comfortable with that our percent increase numbers on this sheet are valid and essentially correct.
Yeah, I'm not so worried about we missed a multiplication in here somewhere. That doesn't bother me so much.
I am,
The
of
percentages
course.
I'm worried about. There's a formula for that in Excel you can use. Okay. I think you're right. I think the percentages are kind of what more concerns me, but I think in the future we may want to look at how those are impacting those usages and those utilities. I don't know, just thought.
I have a
Great.
question. If it's like 1,500 gallons, it's $1.43, right? So if you go 3,500, those half percents, now the first one was to 3,000 what? 39.
Yeah. So if we went up to 4,500, then we would enter into that second tier.
Okay.
I, I don't think you can do halves because the meter is triggered by thousands. I don't know how that works.
This is why Lisa and our other accountants answer utility billing questions for us. So they get to talk to the customers face to face a lot.
I just know that if the meter's red and it's 3.5 thousand gallons, they're only charged for 3,000. But I don't know if that's something, an adjustment that can be made on the meters as a whole. Where's John? But, or if that's in our accounting, you know, so it might have some, it might be something we can do, but it might be something we can't do. I don't know.
Mayor?
Yeah, please.
To Councilmember Howe and other comments, absolutely, like everything you've talked about is very much a policy decision you get to make as a council, right? As staff, we can run scenarios and do evaluations and we're happy to do that. At the end of the day, right, it's just the policy considerations are the more you want to protect the low users, the more the higher users are going to pick up. And that's just the nature of the beast, right? Which staff, that's your call as policymakers to determine that. Our role obviously is looking ahead at the systems that we need to maintain, the projects that are slated in the next 5 years. And, you know, we have the easy job of saying, well, hey, look, the water fund's going to need X millions of dollars in the next 5-10 years if we're going to keep up with some of the replacement of our system and the upkeep. But as far as your policy on where you want the burden to fall to help fund that, you know, staff's really, we're not going to have a strong opinion on you should protect lower users, you should protect higher users, right? That's really a policy decision. At the end of the day, we're just hoping that there'll be funding there to keep up with the projects that we need. And so we're happy to run additional scenarios and look at different things at any time that you as a council want to.
I think in this
Yeah.
economy, that the family with 4 kids is as burdened with its bills as the widow sometimes too. So as we push it to the higher users, there's still some that are going to be adversely affected more than others.
Could I add, with the rates as calculated currently and as presented, that's $276,000 of annual revenue for the water fund. And that sounds like a lot of money until you tear up 40th Street from Washington to Riverdale Road and replace the water line. It doesn't go a long way. So I'm not minimizing the impacts that any of these increases will have on our users, whether it's families or businesses.
We're not getting rich off it.
But just to keep that into context, yes, we're asking for some more, but that $276,000, that doesn't go far when John has the responsibility of upkeeping our entire system. I applaud you for wanting and making efforts to incrementally bump the rates up. I support that 100%. I think it's been something we've tried to do as a city for many years, whether it's property taxes or fees. No political figure wants to have to do that and tackle it, but the councils that have been in your chairs for a number of years have felt like that is the best policy to keep incremental adjustments versus not do anything and then really have to gouge the residents for big increases, which is very painful that no one wants. So, thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Smythe and Councilmember Stewart.
Yes, I just, you know, going back to not being a council member, but being a resident, looking at 2.5% or 2.6% increase, that isn't very much when you consider what everything else has gone up. So I think when people see they're only having a 2.5 5-6% increase is more beneficial than trying to let them understand all this other issue, other calculations, and like the mayor says, we have to think about conservation and the high-end users. Maybe they are letting their water run down the street, who knows? But I think letting the public know this percentage is a lot better than try to make them understand all these other numbers. That doesn't sound like, I'm in that widow retired bracket, and I know this isn't going to affect me that much compared to everything else. Less potato chips.
Joe, that's like one bag, that's like half a bag per month. You can pay this off. Councilmember Stewart, did you?
Yeah, it was just an aside, a question, I guess. Do we have a number on that line for 40th Street to Riverdale Road? How much it costs?
Oh, how much it costs? Well, we awarded the contract.
Right, but then we said, then we still had to purchase the stuff, or we already purchased the stuff, so it's that plus the purchase price.
Peter, do you know offhand how
It's
much?
not in front of me, sorry.
Okay.
Thought it might be.
Yeah, I don't even want to say a number. 'Cause it could look at it.
Lots.
It's not $276,000.
I know.
No. Yeah, it's 500 plus thousand, so.
Yeah.
Well, and I think
I'd be
to,
happy to look that up.
I think what Matt was indicating is that the $276,000 dollars, that's for the projects that they do day in and day out throughout the city in the projects. Would it helpful if we knew exactly how much is entailed in their projects for this year?
I thought it was 9 million over the next 5 years, wasn't it?
Okay.
I think we said 6 million.
6 million over the next 5 years, yeah, we have seen that at one point, and it's extensive.
If Mayor-
No, but this would be $1 million over 5 years, if you look at it that way, too,
And if I may,
because it
Councilmember-
continues in.
Yeah, to Councilmember Stevens' question, and Peter mentioned it briefly in his comments, that we do look at the 5-year sustainability model for our water utility. John has our capital facilities master plan that looks out 5 years and says, okay, here are the needs within your system, here's the projects you need to have, and that's where those numbers are coming from, is those are looking at those 5-year plans and what the needs are. So we have those and can review those with you, but I think the mayor, that number's like 6 million over 5 years for the water projects, which is where our biggest need is, right? Our sewer system. Generally, it's really healthy. It's not as old a system, and we have good gravity in South Ogden with our terrain. Everything flows downhill pretty well. We're not a community that relies on certain lift stations and pumps. Really, our water is our biggest challenge from a utility standpoint. Just the system's older. We have some hot soils, as John calls them, that corrode the pipes in certain areas and maybe even sooner than expected. But he mentioned one of our focuses as a city has been our roads for several years. The more roads we go replace and tear up to repair, the more water line projects we do, because while we got the road open, we should replace the water line underneath it. And so that also is driving our water projects, is our efforts to try and improve our roads. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Just so I don't have to get back to you guys, I do have it in my notes here. 40th Riverdale Road to Washington was a $900,000 bid, and that's one of the projects that we pushed forward a year, because we don't really have the funding for it yet.
Other comments? Okay. Hearing no more, then entertain a motion that we approve ordinance 24-11. And in your motion, please give us a start date. Because we're talking-
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 24-11, approving the amendments to the consolidated fee schedule effective January 1st, 2025.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion?
Mayor, a clarification, if we go to January 1st and not in November, how does that affect our water department for that about a month and a half process?
Well, you figure if it's 200 and what annually? Then it would be a sixth less than that. Yeah, it would be 1/6. It's 2/12. It's 2 more months, so it'd be 1/6 less than that. So it'd be a little lower.
I want to ask the question whether that impacts our water in providing the services.
Have we not already
In that
budgeted for
aspect,
this period, though?
Yeah, it won't, I mean, operationally, things will be fine. Most of the new revenue will be headed towards capital projects, and it's been a common practice in the city. When we address our rates this time of year, I think most often, it's typically a January implementation. It gives us time to put information in newsletters and notify ratepayers and get everything ready to go. So, yeah, I don't have any problems from staff's perspective on a January 1.
It's refreshing to know that it doesn't impact our operations there, so.
No bigger impression. Okay, this is a roll call vote. Councilmember Stewart,
Yes.
Councilmember Howard,
Yes.
Councilmember Smythe,
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens,
Yes.
Councilmember Howe.
Yes.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thanks for
will
your patience with me.
you take this from me, Peter? There's some arrows and some lines where
Fantastic.
Councilmember Stewart's editing eye got some. All right, next is first discussion item. It's the item A, rezone of parks to open space 1. Ally, please.
It's my turn. So yeah, just a little bit of background on this. I'm sure you guys have had some discussion, but so the purpose of this rezone is to have all our parks in the city be zoned as O1 or open space. Currently, they're zoned as whatever the adjacent zone is, which consists of residential zones or mixed-use zones, and that doesn't accurately portray what the current or even future use of these parcels are. The plan is to keep them as public recreational use. And really this will help it show up accurately on the zoning map. Because if you look at our map right now, you wouldn't be able to tell where our parks are. I mean, you guys can probably tell. But any new resident, or maybe most of our residents wouldn't know, like, oh, we have at least 9 more parks in the city that they can go explore and use. So yeah, that's the main purpose of that rezone. It was part of the September 12th Planning Commission meeting, and the commission did not have any opposition to this rezone. I think they acknowledged that this is just for clarification. There isn't any plans to change the use of these parcels. It's just to better show them on our zoning map. We did have a public hearing, and there was one comment regarding the open space by, I think it's part of the nature park, and it's behind Pleasant Valley Estates Phase 3. Correct me if I'm wrong. And there was just concern that that space isn't well kept, but they were open to solutions for that. Staff was able to meet with them afterwards and give them contact information so that we can continue this conversation later on and see if there's a solution there. As far as tonight, though, staff believes that this rezone won't affect that unless it was being turned into some sort of parking lot. If that's the case, then it can be excluded from this rezone. But to my understanding, that parcel is supposed to be part of Nature Park, which is still open space. And if later on there's a different use to that, we can always zone it as whatever it is that we conclude it needs to be. But for now, I don't see any issue with it still being open space. Yeah.
So we're just giving direction to put it on just be on a future council
Yeah.
agenda for approval, okay?
Yeah.
Anybody against the change to open space?
No, but I have a question for Ally that she may be able to answer.
Yeah.
Schools are also zoned within the current zoning. So if
Whatever
if
the
it-
surrounding
if it's
zones.
exactly, for whatever the surrounding area is.
Yeah.
In places like Birch Creek School, where the city owns the park, but we don't own the property behind it, that big open space there. Is there any drawback to either having a school zone or zoning school areas also as open space? And I know there's some criteria for building and whatnot, but
Right.
I would like, because the school district abides by our zoning requirements within the city. They're not exempt from that by any means. Other than usually, I think when they build schools, they get variances for heights or space or whatever. Would there be any possibility to include schools in open space and not include them so that they're also protected and have from development? I mean, the school owns property, but.
I can look into it more, and I anticipate that there'll be other rezones. I'm currently looking at all the other parcels that the city does own. This was just specific to the parks, because we know for sure those will fall under open space.
And like cemeteries are also open space, is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, and I think that one is actually showing up on our zoning map accurately. But yeah, so anything that would fall under that zone. I believe schools are permitted under other zones too, under residential zones, but I can double check that.
I just wondered about preserving those big open spaces that the districts already have. If Weber School District came in and said, well, we want to build something here, but it's zoned as an open space zone, do we protect those green spaces that are already on the table?
Good question. Will you look into that?
Yeah,
Okay, thank
absolutely.
you. Councilmember Stewart?
I think in the past, communities have traditionally looked at schools as community areas, right? That are, however, this school year, they did send out an email to all parents indicating that your student is not to be on other campuses that they're not attending. For example, if I have a student that attends South, they're not to be at Birch Creek even after hours without an invitation. Like, they can't just hang out there. So they're, because of security issues, they're becoming more concerned about just leaving them more open, like what they've used. They've traditionally been more of a gathering space. And my sense, and maybe the mayor has some sense on this, but my sense from the email that I received was that they're trying to close that down a little bit, that it's not going to be so open in the future to the community being able to use school property, whether it's because they specifically mentioned some of their fields. They said some of these fields are not open access to the community. You can't just go on and use them whenever you want, and you can't. For example, Bonneville has turf, right? Artificial turf. And so they have certain rules, right? Like, you can't just, as a community member, go and walk around the track anymore. And so I guess what I'm saying is it's maybe changing how we can view it, whether it's open space for the community or not. Yes, it's open right now, but it's getting less and less open to the community.
I think they're doing it for safety. and
Especially, yeah, especially during
security
school
and
hours.
everything.
Yes, they are.
That could affect it. Yeah.
But
So-
I think, and my son got the same thing. He has, on his B days, he doesn't go to Bonneville until 12 o'clock. And he couldn't even go in or they questioned him when he went in for drumline practice. And told him he can't be on school property until his classes start. And I understand that there's safety there too, but I think, I don't know how much pull we have with that. Like, if we have pull in the school district to actually mark those as open space, but it is school property. The Weber School District owns those fields, right? And so usage other than outside school activities, they have currently the right to request that you don't use those. And again, there's other constitutional things that go in that, it's public space. But I'd like to at least look and see what maybe some other communities do, especially because this Birch Creek field is so big. And it is an open space, we want to protect our open spaces. So I'd like to see what that scenario looks like.
And for now, we have an understanding with the school district on that field.
Yep.
Rules change.
So, but if no one's against open space for our parks, then we will go forward with that and bring it to you next council meeting. Is that correct? Okay. Ally, thanks for your work on that. Item B, memorandum of understanding with Washington Terrace for Senior Center Services. Mr. Dixon.
Mayor, this is a quick update, just to let you know that the Weber Human Services Board meets on Friday, and they will be making their final decision on what senior centers they will continue to contribute funding and staffing towards, and which ones they will not. Our discussions with Washington Terrace, as we sharpen the pencil and put the numbers together, we would be looking in order to kind of meet the needs of kind of the gap between Weber Human Service funding and programming to keep the center operating. I think that was, 6 days a week for so many hours as kind of currently operating. Was an initial contribution from South Ogden to Weber Human Services in support of the Washington Terrace Center of around $12,000 to $13,000. If Washington Terrace's center is selected as one that Weber Human Services will continue to support, then we will work on a formal interlocal agreement between South Ogden, Weber Human Services, and the Terrace that'll spell all of this out. There is, the concept would also include annual adjustments to our contribution, obviously for inflationary reasons, as well as helping to contribute funding for staff increases and those kinds of things. Again, the county very much taking the position we're not going to increase our contributions towards senior centers. So anything above kind of today is going to have to fall on the cities to contribute if they want to continue to have senior centers. Couldn't disagree more with the policy decision by the county, but that's where things are at. If you know members of the board of Weber Human Services and want to reach out and in support of the Washington Terrace Center, I will say there's a pretty healthy number of our residents that also go to the Riverdale Center. So it's a tough thing for everyone involved. And so there's your update, Mayor. I just wanted to let you know I'll pass along any information as soon as I learn more.
Thank you. All right, time for reports, directions to city manager. We'll start with Councilmember Stevens tonight.
Thank you. I attended the mid-year conference and with Matt Dixon, and it was illustrated to us that the Utah League of Cities and Towns said they will provide online training and also leadership. And also local programs should be available for the city, so they are working to bring programs to the city. We had the opportunity to hear Fraser Bullock, of the chairman of the 2034 Olympic Games, and he said that the world is coming to Utah in 2034, and it is well for us to be ready for that opportunity. The public support is important for the Olympic Games, and he also mentioned that there are several aspects that the Olympic Games provide for Utah, and also the nation and the world. And one of them is unification. It just brings more unity, not only to our communities, but also to the world and to the nation. They're looking for 24,000 volunteers to be needed, and so if we want to be part of that, we have that opportunity. And he wants us to be, the citizens of Utah, to be part of the 2034 team. There are several things that come to being for the Olympic Games. Number one is that it is good, not only for the community, for the state, and for the nation, but also for the world. And as I mentioned before, it brings a unification, but also, he also mentions that the youth sports will benefit from having the games here. He emphasized the capacity of the education values, because it helps us think not only of the things that are happening in our own community, but also in the world. And the community will have live insights of what's happening to the games. And so there are several breakout sessions. Matt, you attended the one with the AI there, and I went to the community engagement. But in this coming year, America 250, you'll hear quite a bit about that. That's when the Constitution of the United States will be celebrated. And so they will provide traveling exhibits. They will also be working with the community to emphasize the 2050 celebration. And during this engagement of the our national birthday, there'll be some emphasis on things that will happen with that there. So, but it was beneficial. We also heard from the goalkeeper of the Miracle on Ice. He was the goalkeeper of the 1980 U.S. Olympic team, and he had some pretty interesting concepts there. He says the team always needed to find the right way to win. The opportunities were developed because of the advantages that they created. The opportunities represented something bigger than yourself. And that's what they looked at, is that the athletes being on the Olympic team had a focus of something bigger than themselves. They need to prepare to win and spend the energy and time to prepare for what is before them. And that was a concept that I looked at there. He said also, when they won the gold medal, he said the flag need to fly higher than anyone else. What he meant by that is that the United States flag was in the #1 position. He also emphasized families first, doing the right thing, keeping your integrity, and becoming a family. And that's what the athletes on that Olympic team actually did, is that they became a family of one another. But it was quite beneficial to us there. So.
Okay, thank you. Good report. Councilmember Howard.
I'm going to pass.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thanks. Yesterday was LPC. They had a lot of things they covered and talked about. There's going to be many, many things over the next few months as we're getting closer to the session. They talked about justice courts and public safety and alcohol proximity and building plan reviews and building permits, building inspections and licensing. There's been some discussion about dispute resolution with building inspections and licensing. They talked about bonding and the moderate income housing plans and parking and garages. Anyway, and other housing proposals. So keep listening. There's going to be lots. So, and then as I came in tonight, I noticed that the skate park was already being used. There were people on skateboards and bikes and scooters and, yeah, anyway, quite a crew out there already. And then I had a resident contact me about Adams Avenue, and I asked Matt some questions about it, and I received a message from them last night saying, oh, Adams Avenue got cleaned up, thank you. And so I just wanted to pass on that they expressed appreciation for some cleanup that happened along Adams Avenue. And that's everything for me.
It took a second text, but we got it. We got it. One too many, but thank you. Councilmember Smythe.
I will pass.
Councilmember Howe.
Yeah, just real quick, skate park, Matt and team, it's been awesome just to see how quickly that went together, and super excited. We do have a ribbon cutting on October 3rd. 4th?
4 p.m.
4 p.m.?
October 3rd at 4 p.m.
October 3rd, yeah, good. So looking forward to that. I'd like to see the community get together and do that. But speaking of that, as I was looking over to the gallery and realized that every single person over there is new-ish. And I just want to say, Matt and team and Lisa and whoever else is involved in onboarding these individuals, I don't think the city's missed a beat. And it's been awesome to have that much new talent come on board that's going to serve us years and years into the future. So even Ollie, who can't see me, thank you. Thank you for coming here. Thank you for being here. And thank you for serving your communities. Appreciate that. Yeah. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Amen to that. Mr. Dixon.
Amen. Hallelujah. I would agree. Just great staff, and too often I might get credit for stuff that I don't even do and involved with, and so we do have amazing staff and grateful for all of their efforts. You know, there's a few things looking back over, I don't know, I've been doing this for 27 years in local government. I don't know that I've been more excited for any of it than the skate park. I just, honestly, I need someone to I need to like paint my windows black so I don't find myself just looking out there, and just exciting to be a part of that. Grateful for a city and a council that has wanted to make some investments in their community. You know, Birch Creek Park was one of those too. My family was just, for months after it opened, they would be so, anytime we came into Ogden, anywhere, I'm like, we got to swing by the park. Because I just wanted to go see people using it, right? So the skate park is super excited. Grateful for Danielle's putting together the ribbon cutting. It's going to be great. Starting to spread the word. We're going to have a food truck, and we're going to have local skate park companies here. Spawn Ranch and others are bringing potentially a couple of pro riders to ride with the kids and enjoy it. And so, I don't know, you might see me just sitting out there in a lawn chair tomorrow. Just
When you speak to that, though, that we are, it is open. We're not, those kids are not breaking the law now. They were on the weekend.
We elected, after doing a walkthrough with Spawn Ranch, they had completed all their punch list items. We had our insurance company, our risk management come up. We did a thorough walkthrough. Actually identified a few parts that we've painted some blue stripes to just delineate, you know, for safety reasons. We do have some signs on order that will have kind of the park rules. So in consultation with everyone, it was like, you know what, let's just have a soft opening and let it go, and then we'll have an official ribbon cutting on October 3rd. So, yeah, super excited. I will tell you, just being out there this afternoon, I took a minute and walked out and just kind of sat there before the rain started, and just people are like, hey, are you, because I must stand out a little bit, but they just asked, hey, are you a part of it? I said, yeah, I work for the city. I just wanted to see you guys, and oh my goodness, like, overwhelming appreciation, and just like, hey, this is just awesome. The one gentleman is from Ogden, he said, yeah, he said, this is the best park that I ride, because he goes, I was down in West Jordan, they just built one. He goes, this one's better, like, this is great. So lots of kudos to the committee that put that together. So October 3rd is going to be a big party. Super excited about it. Also attended the Utah League Conference with Councilmember Stevens. A lot of great information. AI is here to stay, and governments are going to be learning and adapting along with it. The state has, they had a couple of members from the state IT department there who talked about the things the state is doing and what the state is learning about AI and how it will be implemented. My biggest takeaway for us as a city is looking at creating some policies for our employees and for our organization on how do we safely use AI and what are the policies around that, right? And the state has some draft policies and some things in place. So that was one of my big takeaways is, yeah, we probably need to get some policies in place to be sure if our employees choose to start using it more, they understand there's policies around that. Also attended LPC. Councilmember Stewart mentioned everything that I had. I do want to emphasize the Amendment D. You may have been reading in the paper, this is dealing with the state legislature's authority to amend propositions that get passed by the public through the initiative process. As you've probably read, right, right now, unless it's changed, the Supreme Court has ruled that although it will be on the ballot, the votes won't count towards Amendment D, but I know there's an appeal that may change that before Election Day. The takeaway for us as public figures, we cannot use any public funds, including our public email, the city logo. We cannot use any of that in support or opposition of propositions and initiatives. You're fine to use your title and your personal email, but you can't use any public funds, including like the city resources, emails, and those kind of things. So if you're tempted to send emails and you want to support or oppose, any of that kind of stuff, we just need to be super careful to not use public funds. So that was a big takeaway from LPC, in addition to all the things that Councilmember Stewart mentioned. Okay. I think that's all I have, Mayor, so thank you.
Thank you. We're working on youth city council still. I've talked to a few students. We're getting an application, a form ready for that they can fill out for an application form that I will distribute throughout the high school and to the junior high. And Mr. Straight, former council member, still on board to direct that. So we are getting that underway. There is a training we're hoping we can send Brent to for that, and then hoping to have some kids in place for that legislative youth city council event in January. So we are working on that. Mr. Dixon talked to, what was her title? President of the State Youth City Council Association of College. Yeah, she was very helpful.
Yeah. She works for Harriman City.
Yeah, sent us some templates. So we will put some of that out on social media, requesting anybody interested, and as well as I will hit up the kids at the high school.
Mayor, are we still interested in soliciting any other community advisors?
Yes, we'd love to get one more.
Parents or just community volunteers that want to
I'd
help?
love to have at least one more.
I think it would be.
Two would be
good.
fine.
Yeah.
So as I present to the students, I will tell them the parents can, if your parent would like to help. Yes. So we can work on that with one of the templates we got from the lady in Harriman. We're excited about that. The skate park's been mentioned, and hopefully your trees survived. I lost a couple big limbs. The golf course had a lot of damage, but as far as I know, nothing from the city side that's damaged. So, and that's all I have. So again, appreciate everybody's efforts and being here and all that you do behind the scenes and in front of the camera. And entertain a motion that we adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.